Yo guys, if you want punchier bass in Serum, this video is for you. So there's a lot of tutorials on how to create like 808 samples, for example, but they don't really go into the nuance of what makes this 808 different from another 808, for example. So let's go to menu, let's go to initialize preset. We're gonna switch this over to a sine wave. And the main thing people do is just use what's called a decay curvature. So they'll do something like this. Sorry, that's my piano, let me turn that off. And they'll say, okay, we're making an 808, and then they'll just drop the octave. This is like one portion of an 808. So let's add this in so we have a rhythm. All right. So the question is, does this sound like an 808? And the answer is no. So there's a lot more steps involved with an 808. The first step that everybody overlooks is if you go to the pencil tool, we can actually adjust what are called the partials or the harmonics of the sound. So the key is in the second and third harmonic here. And just turning these up or down. That one change can make your 808 sound completely different. There's no distortion, there's no envelope shaping, there's no pitch envelope shaping that can be done to get that sound. You have to go to the source of the harmonics themselves. And that's what creates, you know, some of the more bubbly 808s, I'll say. Now what we're gonna do is from here, we're gonna go to envelope 2, we're gonna lower the sustain so that we have a decay curvature. We're gonna drag this over top of the coarse tuning here. Because it's more of a sweep as opposed to octave. It gives you like a step-by-step sound, so it might go like that. We don't want it to be that linear. We want it to be more like natural. So we're going to go to coarse tuning. And this is the punch of the 808 that nobody talks about. We're going to pull back the decay curvature and make it very subtle. And that simple, you know, coarse pitch dive is what creates the punch of the 808. Now it's hard to hear because we haven't processed the 808 all the way. But I'll exaggerate so you guys can hear. Now in the matrix, you can also set this to unipolar or bipolar mode. So this way you can control where the frequency actually stops. By default, it's on bipolar mode. So you're gonna get values lower than your initial value, which does create more of a sweep. But sometimes you wanna be targeting a very specific endpoint. And another thing with people designing 808s, they don't realize that you don't want everything in middle C because of the way it handles the 808. Okay, so basically if an 808 sounds better at G than C, I'm going to design it at G and then print it. Whereas most people, they force middle C onto their 808. And I'll see if I can show you guys the difference. So now let's pull in the range here. Now another secret is we can have the filter envelope turned on. Basically, we don't need the filter necessarily, but if you guys want to mess with the cutoff, you guys can. And then we're going to turn up what's called the drive. So this is the first area. People don't look for saturation. They usually go to distortion, but let's try the filter drive. Now we have a pretty heavy 808. Now another thing people don't look at is the curvature of the decay. So decay curvature can be upward, it can be downward. So concave curvature gives you more of a dynamic 808. Sounds more like a kick. But if you want more of that like Zaytoven type 808, you want more of a convex curvature. Okay, so this also is something people have no idea what to, you know, that's even a thing. So let's make an 808 that looks more like this. And then we can also, there's like a little gnat flying around, guys. So we can also mess with the sustain curvature to create more of like a curvature like this. And then the release tail can just ring out by itself. So what most people don't know in Serum, in the top left, you could just left click here and drag a one shot out like that. Now this sample looks crazy. If you look at the sample, it just kind of looks crazy. So, but that's the 808 and it sounds punchy. So we can double click in here and we can edit further. We can right click, edit in audio editor. You can right click here to change the name. So here's how people add the websites right here. They can, you know, I usually type my website here. So this is incorporated into the metadata of the 808. I'll type, you know, 808 and let's call this, boom, I don't know. And we'll hit accept and then save this into a file. So let's save sample as and just drag this to wherever you guys want to save your samples. And boom, you have an 808. Now this is distorting. So let's go back to the sound itself. and it looks like I gained it down 4 dB. So a simple, So a simple way to make sure it's not clipping when people get it is to normalize. I would not recommend you guys normalize a lot of things. Normalizing is just going to turn it down. Okay. Don't get in the habit of normalizing. Okay. If you don't know how to use it. Okay. Let's save this like here. So now it's not clipping. Now this 808 looks crazy. It just looks very, just crazy. So to add more punch, I'll say, or perceived character to an 808, what we can do is start using what are called the warp mode. So let's go to distortion and start off with the tube mode. I'm going to turn off the filter saturation so that we hear only one stage of saturation. And let's go back to pattern mode. And let's turn up the tube mode. So this is going to give you a different shaping of the actual sound. It's more of a rounded, bubbly saturation. Let's add a little more curvature here. All right, now we just got to turn up the volume. And again, we can double up with the filter, but again, this is two stages of saturation. It might be overkill. There's also different types of saturation we can go through, do soft clipping. So now I'm going to make the decay curvature smaller so that it's not like pew, pew. It's just like a little blip. All right, so that's probably what I would do here. I wouldn't overkill this sound. Now, if you want to take it even further for more punch, people don't think of these little things when you're sound designing. Let's go to a wavetable. Let's go to a sine wave, turn off the level. We're going to go to the warp mode and go FM from B. And we're going to right click this octave and go to mode ratio. Sorry, there's a little gnat flying around, guys. Flying inside. Okay, it's so hot outside, the bugs want to come inside. So we have FM synth here. And then we can set the ratio. So if I go to ratio 1 or go to 0.5, it modulates at a lower octave. So it creates more of a bubbly tone. So if I take off the soft clip, for example, and use only modulation, it has like a subtly bubbly sound. So if I turn off oscillator B, here's what it sounds like. Here's with it on. So what we can do is give this an envelope. Let's use envelope 3 and then set the max amount with the blue curvature, and the white point is where it stops. So let's pull this down. So now it goes boom, boom, like that. So this is another way of creating a transient that's not your typical pitch dive. All right, so for example, I can change the ratio here to change the octave of the modulator. So the lower you go, the more bubbly the tone, the higher you go, the more metallic. So we can add these little like metallic transients in here. Now people to the faint ear, they're not gonna notice that. So let's turn up the soft clipping. And then we can run it through the filter. Or lower the cutoff so it doesn't have as much high frequency. And we could change the filter curvature. I think this is a good compromise in the sound here. And then we can mess with that filter drive as well if we need more energy. So I think this is a pretty solid 808. So what I like to do is actually record my 808s into Edison. You guys can do the one-shot thing, which is drag it out the corner. But if you have more processing, like for example, if I had soft clipper or fruity soft clipper in here, and then we're going to turn the threshold up and add another one. There's that fruity soft clipper, and then do the same thing. But on the first soft clipper, we're going to use the post gain as a gain knob into the second soft clipper. And if I want to make, excuse me guys, any EQ adjustments, I can go to parametric EQ too and just shape some of the EQ. And then we can even add in, let's do fruity limiter. So I'm just showing you guys how to get different characters out of your 808. All right, this could do fruity limiter, turn the ceiling up, turn saturation down. So now we're shaving off the pointy transient, making it more squared off. Just gonna push the gain a little bit. Now we have a really strong, dense 808. All right, and then what I do is I open up Edison, and then I record on play. So it waits for the master play, and then hit record, and then hit play up here. And you got to make sure that the channel has enough room to record the entirety of the 808. So let's do this again. Now this 808, clearly I forgot to turn down the sustain, so that was my fault. But we need to give it a tail. So basically, we'll leave the sustain for this 808. But to create a tail, what we can do in Edison is highlight it and just fade it out. So now it has an ending. And we can even, save time for, for the customer, for example, is change our snap to grid to 0 crossing. And then we're going to get rid of the song loop, just right click, delete. And basically we're going to add a set a loop. And because it's at 0 crossing, it should only lock into the 0 points. Yeah. So basically we just need to make sure we're at the very beginning of a cycle and the very end. So somewhere in here. And then we'll have this loop. We got to put it on loop mode to hear what it sounds like looped. Now it shouldn't click. So if you hear any clicks, and also turn this little arrow off so the screen doesn't keep moving. Okay, so there's a little click, so which means there's not a crossfade 0 point. So what I like to do is choose a wrong point and on purpose to hear which side is clicking. It's hard to tell if it's the left or the right side. So I think it's the right side. So let's zoom in, figure out what's happening on this side. All right, so it was because the loop started back. Basically, you have to know how to measure a cycle. Okay, so now it has a perfect loop, and then we could send this to the channel rack by left clicking, or we could just save it as, actually, we could just save it as, go to desktop. I'll just save this as 8082. Now we forgot to add the metadata, so let's right click in here to give it a name, 808 Boomer at our website. Hit accept, and then save this version. And make sure you're at 32-bit, okay, and not mono, because if you click this, it will convert it to mono. So let's do the same thing again. 808 Boomer. Now we're not done, you guys, so there's still more steps. So we can send this back to the channel rack where we can add even more processing. So we can go to pre-computed effects and mess with stereo delay to widen out the 808. Create that like stereo effect like that. That sounds pretty dope to me. And then I would record this back into Edison. Now this is too much processing, so I'm going to turn off all the EQs and everything. So I go right back into Edison, hit new. And this time I would record on input. It just adds a little gap in the beginning. So now we have a new sample just like that. Now it has similar information as the old sample, but it's a different thing. So if I record this way, we're going to highlight everything, including the transient on the left side, and hit trim side noise. And then we're going to do the same thing on the right side, trim side noise. That will get rid of any kind of blankness on the side. We could also fade it out to make sure there's no clicks. Oops, Control Z that, because see what happened there. Undo, fade out. All right, so we got to highlight the very end here and just fade it out to create a 0 point. Same thing, we got to set a loop. Okay, make sure your snap to grid is set to 0 crossing, and then we're going to zoom in and just find the beginning of a cycle. Now this one is a little bit more difficult because you have stereo information. So this one I would not loop because it's too much difference between the left and the right to loop properly. So in this one, we're just going to leave it as is, and we're going to give it a name. Right click over here, give it a name, 808 wide, give our website. Hit accept, and then we're going to save this sample as, put it right on the desktop. So just like that, we have a new sample, okay? And then you can do more creative stuff like add boost. I mean, you guys know all the drill, right? We're going to send this to a soft clipper. We could add boost. We could do, now there's a ping pong or pogo mode. So this is more of an underground sound. we could have the pitch diving fast on left side. So it creates like a snappy. And then we also want to make sure we cut itself, right click and cut itself. Or we could turn to the right. It creates a longer pitch bend, so it goes down over time. Or we can go to the envelope, go to the pitch envelope, turn the amount up, turn everything else down except for decay. Turn this up and just turn the amount as high as you guys need it. So that's how you create those like underground 808s. And then you can sample that. So that's a whole new sample. So I'm using one source sound, but I'm making however many new samples. And this is how you guys need to think when it comes to sound design. You don't always need to start with the new source sound every single time. All right, so we're gonna let that ride out. I'm not gonna save this one. You guys get the gist. You save the file, you add your metadata, right? Okay, another thing we could do for this 808, one last thing, is we could fade out on the front panel. We could just fade the length and truncate the 808. So now it's not this long sustained sound. Now it's more of a jumpier 808. So that's how you guys add punch to your 808s. Nobody's gonna really explain this because this is deep sound design. If you guys want to learn more, go to busyworksbeats.com/premium. Share with a friend. Peace out, guys.